Hello, good day. My name is Zachariah Akinpelu. I'll be the facilitator for this course. So we'll be starting with lesson 1, Introduction to Ethical Hacking Strategies. Introduction to Ethical Hacking Strategies. So at the end of the course, you'll be able to learn the fundamental concept about ethical hacking, including its importance, types, processes, phases, methodologies, and strategies. We also focus on the red teaming. Red teaming is the process of conducting an attack simulation on with a person that understands the network. So the learning objective will learn the fundamental of red teaming, the importance, the processes, and also how to set up the red teaming lab for the first time. So we are talking of, but for the sake of this course, I will be interchanging between ethical hacking and the penetration testing and the red teaming. But at the end of the lesson, I would clarify the difference between ethical hacking, penetration testing, and red teaming. So the ethical hacking exercise uses common exploit method. And some of this method, the essence of using this exploit method just to confirm the exposure, to confirm whether a vulnerability can be exploited, to also ensure whether an environment is in compliance with the regulatory requirement or the PCI standard or other standard. The standard can be ISO 27001, can be ISO 27032, can be PCI standards. So it also, the essence of penetration testing is to assess the effectiveness and quality of existing control. So if you want to know or determine the level, the adequacy of the control that has been put in place, you need to conduct a thorough penetration testing to know whether that control can be bypassed, to also know whether that control, for example, if you've put in, maybe you've put in place a multi-factor authentication. So if you want to test for the effectiveness of this multi-factor authentication, you can conduct a kind of a brute force attack, or also conduct a kind of a bypass attack, an attack to bypass the multi-factor authentication to see whether that set control is effective. So the essence of ethical hacking is also to identify how specific vulnerability expose IT resource and assets. So if you want to know what exactly can be done by the bad guy to carry out an exploitation on the vulnerabilities on IT assets. So I'll go to the next slide. So therefore, we also discuss about the different guidelines, different testing guidelines. Before you conduct a penetration testing, you need to clearly define the scope. The scope needs to be well defined. You need to get a written permission. You need to be authorized to conduct this testing. So a point of warning here, some of the exercises, some of the lab, virtually most of the lab, before you do this on your on any given IT asset, make sure that you have a written permission. So that's the reason why a lab was created, and the lab contains some vulnerable application, vulnerable assets that you can use to play with. So please do not conduct some of this exploitation on any environment if not gotten a written approval, or if you don't have an authorization to do that. Then some of these guidelines also, you need to implement do not harm procedure to ensure no assets are harmed. So whenever you are conducting a red teaming exercise, you must ensure that that red teaming exercise doesn't cause any harm to the environment. For example, do not conduct an exercise that would create a denial of service, especially on the business critical or mission critical application. Mission critical asset can be the ICS. For example, if you have been asked to come and conduct a red teaming exercise at the industrial control system or on a power grid, you do not do a denial of service if it's what a community or what a nation or what a town is using. So you should know this. Then another guide that you put in mind that you should have a communication and escalation plan. In case if things goes the wrong way, there should be a communication plan and escalation plan. And whenever you discover any vulnerability that can easily be exploited by a bad actors, you need to clearly define the communication so that you can quickly escalate. So you don't need to wait till the end of your exercise before you inform your client or your organization about an exposure that needs to be quickly fixed. So I will walk us through the various exercise, various activities. First and foremost, there is what we call the pre-engagement activities. These activities, you need to make sure that you engage your clients or your organization. So because red teaming penetration testing is a very complex exercise. So it's a cyclical process of both identifying and exploiting vulnerabilities in the system. So the ultimate goal of penetration testing is to identify and assess the client organizational risk of exposure. You need to do your pre-engagement. This is very, very key. And you also need to make sure that you follow through the industry standard before you perform your ethical hacking exercise or penetration testing exercise. Make sure that the effort has been made by both the organization and the open source community to establish standard. There must be a standard that can be leveraged on. So some of these standards will be more discussed in the subsequent chapter. So before we proceed, I would want us to have a look at the basic steps that every penetration tester or ethical hackers go through before the engagement can begin. So the first thing is that you need to have a rules of engagement. So during your pre-engagement exercise, the ethical hacker need to discuss and have a group meeting with the various stakeholders of your organization or the various stakeholders of your clients. So, and what are the things that you need to discuss about? You need to discuss about the number of legal matters and technical matters. So make sure that this discussion are made up of various stakeholders, both the technical stakeholders, the legal stakeholders, and the business stakeholders. And so for the rules of engagement, make sure that you have the written agreements. And this agreement should be well documented. And if possible, sign up, whether digitally signed or physically signed. So this can be one or more. This rule of engagement can contain, not necessarily should be a document, can be a document, can be one or more documents with objective to define. So what are the things that need to be defined? The goal and scope of the engagement need to be well defined. The timeline and milestone need to be well defined. Because ethical hacking exercise should be taken like a project. You know, every project has a start time and end time. So you must describe the milestone, the various milestones and the various timeline for defense milestone. Then the liabilities and responsibilities should be well defined. the responsibility of maybe getting information. Let's presume that you want to engage your stakeholders, those technical stakeholders, before you continue with your work as a ethical hacker. You need to clearly define the responsibility. Who are the people that will give you the required information, the network access, or people that will provide the listing of the assets that need to be tested. Then you also need to also explain the techniques. What are the allowed techniques? For example, in most of the time, whenever I'm engaging in ethical hacking exercise, I clearly spell out the techniques that are not allowed most of the time, unless if my client or organization state that I should do a test for a distributed denial of service. Most of the time, I clearly state it. So based on the agreements, whether to conduct a DDoS as part of the red teaming exercise or not to do that. Then the deliverables and expectations need to be clearly stated. The deliverables, what is expected of the tester, what is expected of the organization, and what is expected of various stakeholders. Then the last but not the least, the statement of work need to be clearly documented. So those are the things that need to be